Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
Welcome to Intersect Radio, where music, faith, and life converge. With your host, Aaron the A-Train Smith.
Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to Intersect Radio. Today, just before Valentine's Day, right? Wow, already. We've been away for a couple of weeks because of commitments to the NAMM show and preparation for that. And we're glad to be back today. We have a very special guest with us today, Miss Sandra McCracken. She's a prolific singer-songwriter and modern-day hymnist whose songs like We Will Feast in the House of Zion, God's Highway, and Thy Mercy, My God, have settled into regular rotation in churches internationally. She's had music on ABC's Grey's Anatomy. She's written for groups like All Sons and Daughters, Audrey Assad, Indelible Grace, BiFrost Arts, Caedmon's Call, and many others. She's also been a guest contributor for the Gospel Coalition, Christianity Today, She Reads Truth, Art House America blog, Relevant magazine, and many other publications. She has released her latest record in 2018. It's called Songs from the Valley. And she says about this record that these songs are songs of friendship, sorrow, and comfort. And we're so glad to have her here today. And Sandra, before we get started, I want you to know that We Will Feast and Thy Mercy, My God, are two of our favorite hymns here at the Smith House.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me today.
Yes, I didn't know you wrote those until I read your bio.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we at the church I was attending until recently, we didn't do charts that much, you know. They would send the song through Spotify and say, learn it. This is what we're going to do Sunday. Okay. So I never saw who wrote that stuff. But you've been really busy. I mean, how many songs?
To stay busy. I don't think about it until I hear.
Yeah. Oh, you writing every day?
I'm writing a lot right now. I feel like I go through seasons where there's more writing. There's always productivity, but some household stuff. Other days it's writing, and you just kind of move through the seasons, right?
Yeah. Wow, you're very prolific, and I often wonder how people like yourself come up with song and lyrics like that. Do you journal? You have a special process, or does it just come to you?
I think journaling is probably one of the disciplines or one of the practices that's fed into my creative work more than anything. I remember being this kind of graduating from high school, and I had a teacher at my high school, Mrs. Lewis, who gave me she gave me a journal, and I think I had journaled some when I was younger, but very sporadically. And beginning after high school, I started to write my thoughts and prayers and whatever my imagination I would write down in a book, and I just started carrying a book with me all the time. And I do think that has helped. Sometimes it becomes songs. Sometimes it's not necessarily something I'd ever go back to, but it helps me to process my thoughts a little bit more than just living in my head.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you raised in a Christian family?
Yeah, generally so. I'm the youngest of a big family, and my mom was the one that was really, she really spearheaded that side of things, like taking us to church, and my dad he did love, his favorite thing, which kind of developed later, was that he loved the bands, the church bands. Like, he loves good music, and so I think somewhere in there, we kind of all found our own way, and my siblings have all. So it was like, I wouldn't say we were, like a tidy evangelical church. I mean, home, but I do think that my faith was really formed by way of my family.
Mm-hmm. I had the pleasure of meeting your father about a month ago.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I think he heard you play at church. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big fan of music, and he can spot it. Like, he can spot a great musician, and I'm so glad you guys got to talk, because, he has a great appreciation for the arts.
Good. So, what was your day like today?
Today is because I typically work Sundays and weekends, I try to take Wednesdays as sort of a slow day. Kind of a day of reflection and everything. So, I have a group of women of all ages, and we usually get together on Wednesday mornings, and gathered with them today. And it is really nice to have a little break as we're moving toward a change in the season. And I feel like we've had a lot of, every year with winter, you just think like it's never going to be over. And then you have a day like today, and you start to feel a little bit of that spring pulling us forward. So just, family life, and I'm in between a lot of touring right now. So I will be in and out of town the next couple of months, but today was just home, just taking it easy.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of waiting for winter to start.
You are. Wait, where are you from?
It can't get off the runway. North Carolina.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're not necessarily expecting,
Snow,
like
no.
like kind of a heavier winter than we're getting.
No, but something,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
for sure.
How long have you women been gathering? And is it a special group? Is it how did you form? Just friends?
Well, that's a good question. We are loosely connected with, like, a lot of them are in counseling or in some form of ministry, and some connected with a group in town called Daystar, which does counseling for families, for kids, and so a lot of my friends are kind of in that circle. So we have met, I don't know, here and there, and I've been on the sidelines supporting their ministry for a few years. But that's where we originally met.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, do you release your music independently, or you're on a label these days?
I do. I have had various partnerships over the years. I started out, so my first I started out like in 99 or 2000, just coming out of school. I went to Belmont, and then I started making a go of it, trying to do this for a living, and made my first album independent, and then just kind of have been mostly independent over the years. Sometimes I'd partner with like a label or a distributor or a publisher or just different, but I've always really enjoyed the flexibility of being independent. And so right now I have a management team and a folks that help me with booking, but And then when I release an album, I usually do that by kind of acting as an independent label, where I would just like ask a publicist to help for 3 to 6 months and just kind of just a la carte, just kind of finding the things that we need and making that work, which, you know, as you know, like the music industry in Nashville and globally has changed so much. How people take music in, how people discover music has changed. And I think in that, having the flexibility has been so advantageous. And so that's, and I think even creatively, it's encouraged me to be able to do a little bit of a lot of things. And that I've really been grateful for that. So yeah, like writing church songs, or sometimes I write just singer-songwriter material, or have a couple of friends who do some country writing. And, you know, that's, I think the ability to maneuver and to try a lot of different things has been a real strength in the changes of the industry at large.
Mm-hmm. Well, who's your favorite singer-songwriter?
Well, what comes to mind is probably Bob Dylan, and that kind of goes back. Yeah, I probably learned Bob Dylan from hearing my brother's Johnny Cash records. I think that was where I first heard some of the Dylan songs, and I didn't know it was Dylan yet. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I think his writing is sort of hymn-like in the sense that there's truth and narrative, and there's poetry, and it's kind of all bound up together. And as many times as you would listen to a song, you kind of hear a new inflection. And so when I started writing, I think that really appealed to me, wanting to write things that had some depth and that would keep you coming back, where, you know, songs are useful in lots of different ways. But I think for me, when there's that repeat that magnetic quality where you just want to keep coming back and listen to it again, I think that's what I love about Dylan. And there's so many great, like, kind of contemporary folk writers, but I think he's probably my favorite. Cool.
Now, had you planned to be a music artist when you were at Belmont? What did you major in at Belmont?
I was undecided for a little bit. I ended up studying music. I initially thought I was going to go the route of music business, and I do love. I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, so I think I've got that, like, a little bit of that Midwestern, you know, work ethic, where I really love knowing how things work and trying to keep business sustainable. So I was initially drawn to the program in Nashville at Belmont because of the music business program. And then once I got there, I realized, you know, I'm probably not as interested in, like, the nuances of, like, you know, finance and like all the like, I mean, I loved the publishing, and I loved kind of the big picture and the ideas that were, but I ended up studying music and really found that to be an environment where a lot of people were flourishing. It was like not overly competitive, but really just a lot of great energy, and a lot of people kind of digging into their craft. And so I was drawn more toward the music study and ended up graduating, you know, going that route, you know, music performance. So yeah, it was, I'm glad for that.
You mentioned St. Louis, Missouri. What was it like growing up in St. Louis? St. Louis.
Well, it's compared to, I would say I didn't know any different until I moved to Nashville, and then I realized, I was not raised in the South. There was there were some distinctions around that, you know. I mean, the Mason-Dixon line, so, you know, it cuts over. There's this sort of funny division there, but St. Louis felt like, you know, it felt more similar to Chicago than it did to Memphis. And even though geographically it's like kind of, I mean, you could make that make sense a lot of different ways, but I think growing up in that environment, I really loved, and I was mostly in other than the last couple of years, I was mostly in the public schools, and my dad was teaching in public schools, and we and I just really loved the diversity, and I loved kind of being thrown in the mix with with all kinds of people that believed all kinds of things. And I think the formation for me in that way was really good. And then moving to the South, I was like, oh man, the experience of even like faith and in cultural Christianity, where there was this assumption that, okay, we probably believe this. I mean, that was such a different experience when I moved here. And I felt it. And I loved the warmth of Southern hospitality, and people hold doors for you. And that was new in Tennessee. But I think I have an appreciation for St. Louis, just the openness of ideas, and it was a little bit more multicultural at the time. Now, I think now probably that's grown significantly in Nashville in the years since I've moved here. But yeah, that's and I had a big family, so there was a lot of cousins and extended family, and there's a richness to that as well. That even though I was kind of a quiet, shy kid, it really played a role in how much I love stories and hearing people's stories.
What was your favorite thing to do as a kid? How did you spend your time when you weren't in school?
Well, I loved being outside. I loved music, but so I loved like going to see theater program, like all kinds of music theater. I would play the piano all the time and make up songs, and but I loved being outside and doing just like, I think the connection between kind of the natural elements and how that kind of brought back into storytelling. I think I was interested in those two things.
Yeah. Is that what drives your interest in writing music for kids?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably, I probably started paying more attention to melodies after my kids were born. So I think, so I've been part of this group, Rain for Roots. We've been doing kids music we started in 2012. And so my kids were young at the time. And just when they would kind of follow me around the house, I started thinking about, man, what makes a good song? And when they would love to sing something and they'd want to sing it over and over again, I started to pay attention. It's almost like the best songwriting training I've had is like, man, your kids are going to tell you, or anybody's kids, they're going to tell you what they really think, and you can't be too precious about the work. And you kind of just have to really immerse yourself in that practice of like, what is music really about? And if it's not just kind of the singer-songwriter thing of expressing my feelings, it's like, man, no, but I want to enjoy it. I want to be able to sing something that we enjoy singing together. And so that kind of just, sorry, the dogs are. So we just, kind of developed it from there, where there was this, just this like communal, shared experience of music. And I think kids music then kind of deepened my care for congregational music, where what does it mean to sing songs together, and thinking about melodies that are not just good for my voice, but that would be good for everybody to sing. And and that is like, how was that missing? Because that was part of the folk tradition. It was certainly part of the music. I remember, the music that sticks in our heads when we're kids, that music that we carry on.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get back to that, I think it kind of, so kids music really helped me to think about songwriting in a new way.
When my kids were small, we lived in Sacramento, California, and we didn't have an air conditioner. And I think that Sacramento gets really hot in the summertime. And
So days are hot. At night it would cool off,
not particularly.
or it would stay hot all the time. Okay.
Yeah, and my kids would be in the back and they're like, "Dad, we can't sleep. It's too hot." And so I would go in the room and I would tell them. I made up these stories called coal stories, and they would go, "Tell us a coal story," and I would tell them. I would make up stuff about Mr. and Mrs. Icicle or something, but they'd fall asleep, and they'd fall asleep, and it was years later that I found out that they really enjoyed them, and
Wow.
it was something they said that it was very memorable and something that they really enjoyed about their time in Sacramento and being kids was Dad's coal stories. If I had only recorded those cold stories. But
Man, that's so great.
But you never know.
Did you try? Yeah, you don't know what. The power of telling stories, and then the attachment that's happening because you're, because you're sharing that together, and it's like it's almost kind of magic that you didn't have recordings because they live in this place in their memories. That's I don't know. It's I think there's something about that. Like there's that Native American tradition of like sand painting where they would make these beautiful like ceremonial art pieces, but they were only for the time that, for that hour, for those few hours of that experience. And then they were gone. And I remember reading about that thinking, okay, there's something in that that's so, it seems so, there's such futility to it. But then there's also this other part where you're like, yeah, but that's the good stuff. Like the good stuff that we can't put in a social media post, and we can't exactly reproduce it, but it was just what it needed to be. And it's pretty cool. Did you tour a lot when your kids were little? Were you in Sacramento when you were traveling the most?
No, actually.
Okay.
I didn't start touring after I had kids. I didn't start touring until we moved here to Nashville.
Okay.
And they were a little older by then. They were in elementary school. So, yes, when they were in elementary school, yes, I did tour. But before they started school, I was at home a lot, just playing around Sacramento. And I used to work at Warehouse Ministries in Sacramento. And that's where I met Charlie Peacock and 77 and all those people. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because I used to live down the street from Chuck and Andy when I first moved to Sacramento.
Oh, in Sacramento. Okay.
In Sacramento, yeah.
Yeah, there's almost like there's kind of some amazing connections between Nashville and Sacramento during that period of time, right?
Right. And he was at the forefront of that. Yeah. Do you know Jimmy A. Beck?
I know him a little bit. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
He was part of that
course,
exodus.
You guys
as well.
are all part of that. Yeah. Okay. So he was coming from California, and then all the connection with, Rich Mullins was kind of grafted into that group later. Is that right?
Well, I think Rich did the grafting in. He grafted in Jimmy and myself. And, yeah.
Okay. That makes
Jimmy
sense.
Jimmy had a solo record on Sparrow, I believe, and he would open shows for Rich and play in Rich's band initially.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so Rich was the grafter. Yeah. We just had a really nice program out at Christ Community Church a couple of weeks ago for Rick Elias, where we performed the Jesus record live.
Oh man, that's so wonderful. I mean, do you guys stay? I mean, have you all stayed in touch? Was it fun to see everybody again?
Yeah, we stay in touch. We've kind of never lost that connection. Yeah, but we hadn't played together.
And
in
Ashley
years.
Cleveland and that's
Ashley,
a pretty incredible
Smitty,
group of people.
Ashley, Smitty, and Amy. Actually, we did. Ashley was speaking at a retreat, so she recorded her performance just before she left.
Okay. Yeah.
And we showed the video of that. Yeah. So tell me, you and Katie Hudson, are you both in Indelible Grace, and how did that start, and how does it continue? How does that work? This is a pretty large group, right?
I've known Katie since we were in college, and we were neighbors, just a few doors down from each other. Maybe by the time, we were in our last year or so of college, we started to become friends, and we were part of a college ministry group, both at Christ Community Church and then Reformed University Fellowship, which was at Vanderbilt and then at Belmont during those years. And it's continuing, it's still there in both places. And that was a really formative time. We sang hymns together, like every week when we would have a Bible study, and we would somebody would strum on guitar and play a lot of traditional hymns, and then also, which I loved, and also some new tunes for some of the old texts that would make them more singable and definitely more portable, where they, didn't have to be played on organ, or, could translate to more of a kind of folk style singing. So Katie and I were both in that crew, and Kevin Twitt was the campus, he was the RUF, Reformed University Fellowship pastor, and still is at Belmont. And he also had this background in music and was a Berkeley grad and played guitar. And so it was such a kind of a combination of those two things. And we started recording some of these songs, writing some new songs. Kevin really encouraged that in all of us who are budding songwriters. And so that was that was maybe late 90s, maybe early 2000s that it started. And then with all the, just everybody's got a studio here in Nashville, it's just been like something that we've been able to keep up and continue to make music over the years and to put these albums out. Kevin's really done all that. And I've just been a guest and contributor to that along the way. But I would say the formation of it was really important for us as we began to let the theology of the songs really sink into our hearts, and then we could draw from that, and as we go through different seasons of life, and these words would come back. These old hymns you sing like "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing," and then you sing the second verse is like, "Here I raise my Ebenezer." And as a 18-year-old, you're just like, I don't know what that means, but you begin to ask the questions. Right. And then it was funny how it would kind of work its way. It's not like we're trying to be like, English people in the 18th century, but there was a sense that the stories would deepen our language and our vocabulary, even as a community. And so we could reference these like old words and kind of say like, man, I get it. This is a place where God met me, and that's really all it means. And, and then you begin to like, it just gives more space to go through the uncertainties of life when you have the theological richness combined with the poetry, combined with the cultural, like the shared experience of knowing the same songs. And I would say that's what the Indelible Grace community and the records and the albums have been, is just like, goodness, in all these ways, and that other people are welcomed into it to listen and share and sing those same songs. And it just, it really gives us a shared experience in a modern world that can be very fragmented.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I had to go to church all the time because my mom was like in the choir, and she ran the children's ministry, and so I had to go to a lot of choir rehearsals and sit in the dark in the church and listen to all these hymns. And I learned so many songs, but there were certain words in the hymns that I didn't understand. They were not part of everyday conversation. So I would make up words, consonant sounds and stuff, to put in place of those words I didn't understand. And when I became an adult and started going back to church again, we'd sing these songs, and in reading the Bible as well, I would hear and see these words, and I go, oh, that's what that means, Yeah. And so I could put the real word in that space where I had created a word, and nothing made sense until I got the real word there.
Oh, wow.
It's like,
wow.
Yeah, that's it. So that was my
That's
my
really
experience with hymns and stuff like that. But
what do you think about when people alter the words? I mean, it's kind of a variation of what you intuitively did as a kid. Like sometimes people will change lines and try to make things more singable or more like kind of modern language, or do you think that's a helpful thing, or do you think it that we're missing out?
Well, I definitely think there's some missing out there.
Yeah.
Because you could be missing the original intent if you change the words.
Yeah.
Some people, there are people writing hymns today. They use an old hymn and then they write a new bridge or a new vamp to it. I guess you can do that because those songs are probably public domain, and but I think it adds to the song. It's not that they change the lyric to the song, but they just add maybe a new experience to the song or something like that. So that's pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah.
I used to go to Kevin Twitt's house, his apartment in Bellevue, on Sunday nights when I first moved to town. He would have what I guess you would call an afterglow, and we talk about the sermon at Christ Community that had been preached earlier that morning. And I've kind of lost touch with Kevin. I should get in contact with him.
Yeah, he's still around. You guys probably don't live too far from each other.
No, we probably don't. Now, tell me, most of us Christians have had, pretty rowdy lives, and usually come to a point because of something where you realize that God loves you and Jesus died for you, and you confess your sins and believe and start living differently and thinking differently. Did you have a point in your life where something like that happened, or would you say you've always been a believer, always known the truth, always been a Christian?
I would say both. I would say I kind of see it as like a linear journey so when I was really young, I do remember having an awareness of, a sensitivity to this, really just this invitation of God, like that I was loved. And I give a lot of props to my mom for just teaching me those truths. As a kid, I remember she would write really small, like prayers on an index card, and then she would encourage me to like write something, or she would write it for me, and then just to pay attention to how God was in my life, and that He was around us, and so that was there when I was really young. And then I think going through the linear journey of life and, making stupid choices and then making some better ones. And like all of that, I think there were points of conversion where, I remember being about 18 and there was just like a realization that, actually I need a savior. Like this whole thing about all these hymns that I know and everything that I've stored up in my heart, all of a sudden it was like I was hearing it for the first time. Mm-hmm. And there was like an awakening to it, I guess is another word for that conversion. Is like it became very vivid to me. Mm-hmm. And I think there have been moments like that over the years. And so that was one. And then I think in the last 5 years or so, just through loss and transition, there were also moments that were not so much, I guess I would say, like, I feel like sometimes this journey of faith is progressive. It's not right. It's not for all of us. It's not this like overnight, black, binary thing. And I think in that way, I think I would see it like a linear journey that I continue to kind of wake up to the truth. And, so maybe there's, yeah.
So you were never rebellious?
I think I've seen my rebellion all throughout, right? But not in the way of like, not in a
destructive sort of way.
Ways. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. That's a lot of us, rebelled in very destructive ways, and only by the grace of God do we stand here today.
Yeah.
I've noticed that with you're the second woman I've had on the show. The first was Ashley Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
Now Ashley was pretty rebellious when she was a kid.
Yeah.
I was shocked to find that out, But most of the guys I've had on the show, they've all had an experience of, where there was a period of rebellion and confession of sins and a turning away, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
and I definitely resonate with that, and I just I think that's what the awakening is. It's the recognizing the gap, the difference between, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to pull this off, and whatever I've been doing, whatever I've been looking to for life, it has come up short, and sometimes more severely than others. And I think those moments of recognizing the need and finding, that there's grace for like a provision for exactly what you need. I think it's a powerful realization.
Right. I agree. Now, you said you are touring a lot this season? Yeah.
So it's because I'm kind of juggling family life and performing, that to me usually looks like weekends and occasionally like a couple weeks at a time. So, I'm kind of in the middle of that, where I'll probably be traveling more than not in the next couple of months, and then it kind of slows down for a bit.
I didn't know you had kids.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. And then, So, and then.
Well, I just found out. Yeah. That's what I mean. I didn't know.
Okay.
Prior to today. I had no idea. Have I met them? Have I seen them?
I don't know if you've met them yet. But you probably will soon. They've heard you play drums.
Okay. All right. So they've been at church when I was there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they've been there. Mm-hmm.
Cool. What are their names?
Yeah. So it's my daughter's Carter Marie, and my son is Charles Rhodes. We call him Rhodes, like the keyboard.
Like the piano? Yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
that's right.
Cool. That must be a fun household. You get 2 dogs, 2 kids, and a bird.
Yeah, we got a little circus going on.
That sounds like a very peaceful
circus.
environment.
You know it.
We're empty nesters over here. We have 2 dogs, though.
You are.
Us,
Yeah.
They keep us busy. There's always something with the dogs.
Oh my gosh, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What would we do without them?
I know.
We'd probably sleep better. I mean, honestly.
Without them? No, I sleep better with them.
Oh, you do? Good.
Because they are like they guard the street.
That's
this
true.
This is their street. You cannot walk down this street unnoticed.
Yeah.
They go to the door, they bark, so it's like a
Yes.
built-in alarm system, And,
That is true.
Dogs so love unconditionally. If you want to really learn what unconditional love is, look to that dog. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing the stuff they forget.
That's true.
They forget it, and like seconds later, they're wagging their tail and they're coming up to you like nothing ever happened. It's pretty
so
amazing.
true.
Yeah. When we first got married, we had a bird and a dog. The bird, unfortunately, I was allergic to.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So the bird had to go.
Yeah.
And the dog at the time has passed, and so I got my wife another dog for a Christmas present. And then I got her another dog for Valentine's Day. I think I was running out of ideas. No.
Oh my. Okay.
Like 4 years apart.
There's a little time between them. Okay.
Yeah. Man, I was like, I think I was running out of ideas.
Oh my gosh. Did she, that could be a mixed blessing. Was she excited?
Oh yeah, she loves them. I mean, she's an animal person.
She was thrilled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no better gift I could have given her,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I realized that, and it's like, well, do I, it's going to be a lot of responsibility, but she's going to be so happy.
Yeah. Just that initial adjustment is it's a learning curve for everybody, but then it's great. Then it's so, we have both of our dogs are pretty young, but one of them is not quite a year, and he's we say that a lot. He is going to be such a good dog because
once
now
he gets
you can tell you're still once he gets it, and he wants to please you, and he's really bright, but he just doesn't quite get it yet.
Are they rescues or purebred?
One's a mix, and the other one is a purebred Weimaraner. The youngest one is
you got a
Weimaraner, but he's got a really calm disposition most of the time, except for the first 90 seconds when you walk in the door. He's so excited he can't stand it. But beyond that, he's very chill, and he's been good. But I do think that that initial investment it's so worth it once you kind of really build the attachment, because they want to please you, and you're right, they are like Velcro. I mean, they're going to be by your side, and it's really a special thing. And the kids, I mean, just having that as part of family life, it's like therapy all the time. Like the kids, if they have a bad day at school and they come in and you got a 75-pound puppy that just wants to sit on your lap. I mean, how are you going to be upset?
Right.
It's like, it's so sweet. It just kind of melts your defenses. So it's been a lot of fun, but not, I mean, it's not always calm, but it sure is a lot of fun.
So do you have, are you writing? Well, I know you're writing now. Do you have any plans for a new record or anything in the near future?
Yeah.
You have a studio at your house, huh?
Well, right now it's kind of in boxes because we moved a few months ago. So we've got basic gear, but it's all sort of deconstructed at the moment. And so I've been working at a friend's studio in Franklin, finishing up a kids music project, Rain for Roots. It's been really fun. It's very, it's like not a real polished record, but man, it's soulful. It's got a lot of songs that are exploring the Psalms in a way that the kids would understand. So asking questions, like there's one song that my friend Flo wrote, and it's just this song called Tell Me. And it's not quite a lament, but it's like, tell me you're going to be with me. Tell me you're going to stay. Like just asking God to meet me in my real life. And I think writing songs like that, exploring themes that are like maybe a little heavier than kids, than you think of when you think of kids music, but it's so inviting. And I find that like working on that has been so much fun. And like every time I go in, there's another song we've been working on called Wisdom and Grace, which is that psalm that says, teach us to number our days. And man, it's like, every time I have to sing that song, it's like good for me just to think about what am I spending my time on, and what does it mean to walk in wisdom and grace, and how do we want to like pass that on to our kids and the kids in our community. And so we're finishing that record, and then I'm in the early stages of a Christmas project, and then a singer-songwriter kind of Americana thing. It's all just at the stage where I want to just write as much as possible and then make decisions about how the songs fit together later, but, but I think through the spring, I'm probably going to continue to write as much as possible and then settle in and do some more recording once this Rain for Roots thing has come out and is already, ready to go out into the world.
Are you an organized writer? I mean, do you have a time of day that you set aside to write, or do you just spontaneously write when you get an idea, or both?
I have been writing with friends and setting aside time to do that, which is usually like midday. But I would say that practice is really nourished when I'm able to, get up and have some quiet, have a cup of tea, and like sit with some scripture, or just like a simple idea, or just meditation around, like even like you said before, I mean, knowing, like hearing that we are loved by God, it's amazing how we forget it. But when I'm soaking in that, my creative life is much more fruitful. And so that I think that's the part that's more of a discipline than the writing itself. And then the writing just sort of happens as it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Staying close.
Yeah.
Staying close to God.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it.
Walking.
Yeah. And yeah. And then throughout the day, you're much more aware of it, right? Like, or you're in your car, or you're traveling from here to there, and you just like, just to feel like the companionship, rather than just, okay, this is a thing we do on Sundays, but knowing God as a friend, and that we talk with him and walk with him throughout the day. It's just when you get used to that, like living in that, you start to really miss it if you're disconnected.
Right. But, it's hard to stay connected sometimes, the push and pull of life and circumstances and stuff like that. But it's always refreshing when you come back. It's like a sigh of relief. Like, oh yeah, I missed this so much. What was I thinking?
Yeah,
that sort of thing. Which it's and Spirit is always there, never left.
Yeah,
we're the ones that do the leaving. So it's pretty amazing. I wish I could write a song about that.
Yeah, me too.
I've never been good with words, writing words. I don't know why. I never journaled either, so I don't know.
That's all right.
I think some people just got it.
Yeah. That's right. Well, there's this one part I was looking at. I think it's in First Peter, but it talks about being carried along by the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And I think about like what that means when there's like, when there's just like, you're just carried along, you're just doing your thing. And we each maybe have different ways of resonating that, like some people are going to be more words. You're obviously going to have more of a rhythmic and response that's, just part of how you're wired, right?
Yeah.
And then coming together, there's this idea that we all bring those different gifts and we become like the choir or the band or, just this collective where, man, right. That's when it gets really good, Yeah. It's like joining together. Yeah,
like
parts and reminding each other.
Parts of the body, different functions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't have to try to do it all, which I guess is the good news, right?
Right.
And like you said, like, man, I know. And it's like, yeah, we forget. We are disconnected. We do, busy ourselves with every other, with distraction and yet we keep coming back to it and we encourage each other to come back to it. And I don't know, songs can do that sometimes, but having a meal together and just being in life together, that's, I think, really where that's happening the most, So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of having a meal together, Tim and I are having hot chicken together tomorrow. And Russ and Eric.
Oh, it's so good. Have you had that a lot? Are you a hot chicken, like spicy food kind of guy?
Oh yeah. Pepper Fire is my favorite place.
That's a good place. Tim has taken me to a handful of those. I mean, it's not something I would have sought out on my own, but I have really enjoyed it. I like Pepper Fire because Pepper Fire is the one that has the waffles, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, if you get breakfast in there, I'm in. Like if there's somehow we can get some sort of breakfast food.
I haven't done the waffles and cheese sandwich and all that sort of stuff. I just pretty much go for the chicken tenders hot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
they've gotten creative with it, I tell you.
Yeah, they have. And another thing about Pepper Fire is they use the hottest pepper in the world.
Oh, they do?
Yep. It's called the Carolina Reaper.
Oh, yes. That sounds like a death pepper.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember when the hot chicken thing started? Like, I know that's like the Nashville thing now, but when did it feels like it's kind of a new thing, a new phenomenon. Do you remember when it started? Old. It's very old? Okay. So it has a legit history.
Yes. It's revenge food.
Oh.
Yes.
Wow.
There was a cheating husband. There was a cheating husband who came home one night and demanded that his wife wake up and fix him a meal. So she did. Oh my gosh. And to get back at him, she fixed him chicken that was so hot. And from there, the tradition started.
No way. I've never heard that story.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a written history of it. Yeah, you can Google it.
I can go find it. Okay.
Some lady here, researched the history of hot chicken here in Nashville. And that's what she found.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, she got him back.
I hope she's making a piece of it because there's a whole lot of those going around in Nashville tourism now. It's pretty great.
So where are you playing this weekend coming up?
This next next week. Oh, I'm going to Savannah, like over on the East Coast. Actually, it's a thing that's connected with Indelible Grace and Reformed University Fellowship. It's like a gathering of people And funny enough, we were talking about him. Kevin Twitt will be there, and we'll do some songs. But it'll be good to see some old friends and to connect with those folks that have been supporting that ministry for a long time. And we'll play a lot of those Indelible Grace songs. So that's kind of fun.
Okay, folks, all you people down in Savannah, be sure to check out Sandra McCracken. And if you're within driving distance, get down there. I want to thank her for being on the show today. Thank you, people, for listening in. Stay tuned next week when we'll have a brand new show.